Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
Trick or treat.
Trick or treat. Hey, that's right. That's right. People will be trick or treating this week. Did you ever trick or treat on Halloween?
I think only the times when Halloween actually fell on a weekend
Yeah.
is the way that our neighborhood used to do it.
Our neighborhood would always have it be like the Sunday before Halloween.
Yeah.
We'd have it. And there'd be certain neighborhoods you'd want to go to because they had way better candy than the other
Right.
neighborhoods.
Right. And then you'd see vans full of people just dumping kids into those neighborhoods.
Right. You know something I saw?
Go get 'em.
I saw a great cartoon the other day, and it was Death showing up at someone's house, like on
Okay.
Halloween. And
Yeah.
Death's like, "I've come for you." And then he looks in the trick or treat thing and goes, "Full-size Snickers? No, we're good." And did you ever have a neighbor that, like they just gave you money instead of?
Yes. Loved that house.
Mhm. There's the neighbor.
Dollar, a crisp dollar bill.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah,
Well, that's
yeah.
what happens when you live in Mequon, because we did
Oh.
not have that in big
Let's not
We had
go there.
quarters
No.
on our wrong side of the tracks.
Our neighborhood just didn't have that many trick or treaters, so I think it wasn't that big of an investment.
All right.
Ours apparently wasn't the good candy neighborhood because
They just thought it was
No.
a good cash neighborhood.
actually what it was the houses were further apart and the driveways were long.
Hmm.
So you really had to work for your candy.
Okay.
So it wasn't like, the condominiums or the apartment ones where you can knock on 20 doors within,
Sure.
a short amount of distance. You had to like hike to get that one little snack
Well,
sized Twix bar.
I lived somewhere with a rural address, and so any place with
yeah,
a
yours
we
was
had to-
probably like that too.
Oh
then.
man, yeah, you were walking forever, and then some people had things on their door that said like "No solicitors, I'll call the police." Yeah, and I'm like, well, I still tried to trick or treat them, but
Yeah.
I never did the trick though.
No,
Like I think one time I actually toilet papered with somebody, and we went around and we toilet papered a few houses.
for Halloween or just for.
Yeah, no, this
high
was
school
Halloween
stuff?
time.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Like in 7th grade or something like that.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the trick part of it is from generations before ours.
Yeah.
Like I remember my mom telling me about when she was a kid how people would egg houses and they'd soap the windows and do all kinds of annoying things like that.
Wax crayons.
Right.
Wax crayon.
All crayons are wax.
Yeah, but there's a certain kind of crayon that I guess that's more like that's harder to get off.
Oh, okay.
And so you just write something silly on somebody's driveway.
Gotcha.
So no, I always loved Halloween. I always loved dressing up,
Yeah.
but never particularly did too much of the tricking. Like one time there was toilet papering, and I feel that I missed out on that
Ooh.
whole thing. So you pranksters out there, if you guys have done something, had a lot of pranks, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. One thing I did like was there'd always be a couple houses in our neighborhood that went out of their way to make it fun to trick or treat at their house.
Oh yeah.
So they'd either decorate things really cool or scary, or they would have like people hiding and jumping out at you.
Yeah.
And usually they were older kids, like high school kids, so they'd be dressed up as a monster or something. And so you'd see a couple of weird looking things in the yard and you're like, okay, their yard's decorated. That's a good sign that there's going to be somebody there to give us candy. Right. And then you come in and somebody jumps out at you or there's some kind of trick that way.
Right, like you'd step on the welcome mat, and then there'd be a button there, and they'd be like,
Right.
"Wah!" And you
Yeah. Or like there'd be somebody, they would set up like a scarecrow or what looked like a scarecrow, but it would actually be a person inside the costume. So it looks like one of those stuffed bodies and, it's sitting there right by the candy bowl. And then when you go to reach for the candy, the person would actually jump up and scare the daylights out of you.
I like that. Well, I mean, think about the kind of costumes we used to have, though.
Yeah.
You know, like those plastic masks with the little strings
like,
and the
like the Target ones.
yeah, and it would just be some kind of like you'd get into it. Like I remember I was Inspector Gadget one year. So if you guys are too young to remember Inspector Gadget, Inspector Gadget was a bumbling detective character,
Cartoon.
cartoon character, voiced by Don Adams from Get Smart, and he kind of took his idiot Get Smart character to Inspector Gadget. Eventually played by Matthew Broderick in the movie. I forgot they made a real life.
Oh yeah,
Inspector
that's
Gadget.
right.
It was horrible. I watched it, and I even saw the sequel where they couldn't afford Matthew Broderick anymore,
Oh,
so they had
no.
French Stewart, that guy with the weird voice from 30 Rock from the Sun,
Oh,
Third Rock from the
okay.
Sun,
Hmm.
played Inspector. Anyway, I remember dressing up, and
So you had the little mask,
You just have a mask.
cheap plastic
Oh,
mask.
Right, which they can't have those anymore because if, I'm seeing, being a new father now, I'm looking at all these different choking hazards and everybody's
well.
talking about choking hazards constantly. And there's no way. I mean, those masks were.
They're not designed for newborns.
No,
Mike.
I know, but I'm just in general. Those masks were choking hazards.
No, I
trying
don't
to
think
put them
so.
on, and you'd always break the string.
Oh yeah, the elastic would break. Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger hazard there would be you've got it on your face and you're probably inhaling some kind of crazy toxins because they're made so cheaply.
Yeah,
Right.
they all smelled like made in China sadness.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I was lucky because my mom loved to sew, so she would sew our costumes. So we'd always have nice, comfy.
So you didn't have
Sewn
to
together.
do the wear the plastic suit like we did.
No, I didn't usually. My favorite costume was the witch costume that she made. So that was
You had a little hat
that
and
was Wendy the
everything?
Witch.
Oh,
Yeah, the hat and then the little cape. And
Was it Wendy the Wicked Witch?
I don't think I was Wicked.
Okay.
I think I was
Not-
just Wendy the Witch.
Not back then.
Right. But it was fun.
Okay.
What was your favorite costume as a kid?
I think the first time I actually had a costume I thought was cool was I just took a monk costume and then it was like the first year that glow in the dark makeup came out.
Oh, that was
And so I
cool.
just had complete glow in the dark makeup on my face. And I wore like the monk with the glow in the dark face, like the skull.
Nice.
And then you turn off the lights and it really glowed in the dark. It was
that's
super
totally
terrifying.
sweet.
Because, you had that thing, it looked like not necessarily like a skull, but the way that your mouth and stuff, because your mouth wasn't glowing in the dark and your eyes weren't glowing in the dark. So
Right.
it really looked like this floating skull in front of you.
Spooky.
So I was like 13. I think went to a party wearing that,
Yeah.
and I think that was my favorite costume. The first time I was
Yeah.
like, man, this is sweet. What was yours?
My favorite costume?
You had to
Oh
wear.
gosh, I don't know. I mean, I just think about when I was a kid. I liked the witch costume a lot, but I was also thinking about in college how we had to really step our game up.
Oh
Because
yeah,
in Madison, Halloween is like a
it was.
mainstream event, and everybody goes down to State Street and parades around. So much so that it's like they need crowd control. It's crazy.
Yeah. So we're living in Madison, Wisconsin, and we went to college here at University of Wisconsin-Madison. And when Wendy says mainstream event, it was something where people would come from all over the Midwest,
Yeah.
Madison,
And even beyond.
and we have this street right in front of the Wisconsin State Capitol called State Street. And cars can't drive on it now. It's like the main drag. It's where the bars are, and there's some of the private dorms are there. And people just on Halloween, they go down to State Street. Everybody's dressed up, and they go crazy.
Yeah, they go wild. And some of those earlier years in our college days,
Yeah.
it got really out of control, and they had to bring in police with riot gear, and things were getting set on fire. And yeah, it became really a bad
Right.
scene.
Now on the Saturday before Halloween, because like MTV even came to film one
Right.
and stuff. Now on the Saturday before Halloween, you actually have to pay to get on a State Street. So
Yeah.
and they'll have bands come to play.
Yeah, it's cool now. It's not as scary because when it got out of control, it was like, oh God, I'm gonna get pepper sprayed.
There's gonna be riots. And
but the cool thing was that cool and also, the anonymity, I'm sure,
Mhm.
helped make things get crazy. But the cool thing was that there were always some people who really were creative with their costumes.
oh,
So
great!
you would
fun.
always see all kinds of fun things. And we were talking about earlier how one of my favorite group costumes I saw there was a Tetris puzzle. So it was like 5 people and they were all the different Tetris shapes and they could like
That's pretty good.
click together, and it was pretty funny.
I remember one of my favorite group costumes I saw was when Kiss was walking down the street. The 70s
yes.
Kiss. Like, and the Gene Simmons had boots and the
Oh,
wings
man.
and everything. And
That's
they really
awesome.
went.
They looked authentic.
And I think this was even before Kiss got back together with their makeup. So
Cool.
they went at a 70s Kiss, like back when, before. Like, so you had a better chance of seeing Kiss in their makeup on the State Street.
Right, and you could get your picture with them and no one would know it wasn't Kiss.
Right. I was going to say about when it was going out of control. And it's really started in like
Yeah.
2002 and things started to get crazy. So by like 2008, that's when they started closing off getting into State Street. And I remember, so 2008, I lived with a police officer and he was telling me that they called in all of the deputies
Wow.
from all around the state. So like there was people
That's
coming from
crazy.
100, 150 miles away.
Yeah.
So they would have enough people to come down to State Street to kind of control it. And they ran out of handcuffs, so they just had to zip tie people.
What?
Zip tie people, throw them in in like
my.
detox or the drunk tank or whatever. But
That must have been an interesting looking drunk tank.
he said that if you wanted to rob a bank in Wisconsin,
Oh no.
it'd have been
no,
the Saturday
don't say
before
that.
Halloween. Well, this is
Oh.
before, So
This is
10
back
years
when
ago.
things were out of control. Yes.
Right.
yes,
But he said
yes.
this would be the time because there's no police. Like in the small towns, they all had to come here.
Oh my goodness.
And
Hmm.
anyway. So
Halloween.
yeah,
All for
Madison
the
Halloween
fun.
used to be a lot of fun. That Kiss was one of my group favorites. I remember we had a Halloween party at the house we lived at in college one time. 1998 we did that.
Mhm.
And that was my favorite color. I went as Ash from Evil Dead.
Oh, nice.
And I borrowed our roommate Kyle had like a chainsaw. They let me borrow, and Ash had like a chainsaw for a hand, and so let me
Oh,
borrow that.
boy.
Like halfway through the party, I
Cool.
had like blood poured all
Oh.
over me and stuff like that, like the character. So
Nice.
I remember that being a fun one, and I really they take Halloween for reals here.
Yeah. Well, and what was your favorite one from that college years?
Oh, our buddy Tim, actually, what he did, what I thought was a cool costume, is he dressed up like one of the mechs
Yeah, that was
from
awesome.
the Matrix.
I remember that.
And he built this costume around him.
so it looked like he was driving a big robot,
Yeah,
but it
it
was
looked like he was driving a
his
robot.
head in a little tiny body
right.
sitting in the. Yeah, that was.
It must have taken him hours.
He was always the cardboard box guy. Like he always.
Had something that required a cardboard box.
Which, by the way, I don't recommend. I did it one year. My brother and I went as a Jaeger bomb, so he was like the Red Bull can, and I was the Jägermeister. and
Oh, I
used-
remember that. Didn't we meet at the end of the night at like the Lava
I
Lounge
think
or
so,
something?
yeah,
there? You guys were
yeah.
dressed up in your Red Bull costume.
But the problem is when you're in a cardboard box costume, people in a crowd situation love to sort of come up and like, I don't know, attack you, like hug you. I mean, because a bunch of drunks, Jaeger, they're coming up, and I'm like trapped in this box, and I can hardly move and navigate around, and going upstairs and things was difficult. Anyway, it makes mobility difficult, and it makes like interacting with people and pretty much everything difficult.
And
so.
that really does date your costume though. When you say like when is a Jaeger
Isn't that
bomb?
silly?
Like when did you go? Well, like probably 2005. Yeah.
Well, my brother had it worse because his Red Bull can costume didn't have armholes. So he had to have like two of us on either side of him in case he got knocked over or something, so we could
like,
catch
how did he
him.
drink?
He would usually
Okay.
just take a straw and have it, but
Way to do it. Well, he didn't have one of those hats with like the beer
No.
cans in them.
no, he'd just have the drink inside the costume and then a
Okay.
straw.
Because there were Jaeger bomb hats. And
Oh, yeah.
you could put a Red Bull.
Oh,
But
gosh.
speaking of alcohol costumes,
Oh,
right?
yes.
so this was, I believe, our Halloween show in 2004, maybe.
Ooh.
And I think that was the year we went as the Terminators.
Okay.
So we all went I went as the Robert Patrick Terminator, the police officer outfit. Ben went as Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Right.
and he dressed up like the Arnold Terminator. And you went as the Terminatrix.
That's right. Yep. It was hard finding a suit that maroon color
Yeah.
suit.
And so we thought we had the baddest ass costume around until our friend Kyle shows up as a beer keg.
Well, I don't think I would call that badass. I think.
Well, what made the costume
But it was awesome. It was cool.
what made the costume
We were
badass
tougher.
was that the beer keg worked. He had beer in his like costume, and he's like, "You want a beer?" And we're like, "What?"
Oh.
And he's walking around the
was
bar, and everybody
hilarious.
thinks it's a joke, and he's
Yeah.
like, "No, dude, there's totally beer in this keg."
Very creative.
So that was, I mean, yeah, Halloween's great. Trick or treat. Just thinking about all the fun costumes and times, and this is why it's our favorite season.
Yeah.
And speaking of, we should do a treat
Ooh.
for the person our latest 5-star review.
Yes.
And let me read that real quick.
Oh man.
I'm a big fan.
Yay.
5 stars from Romanoff. The perfect blend of paranormal, pop culture, and music. As a fan of all things mysterious, this podcast is one of my current favorites. The hosts are entertaining and delightful.
Oh,
Thanks.
thank you.
And being able to rock out the end of each episode is a great bonus.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for listening and for taking the time to write that 5-star review.
Yeah, he gets $1 if he comes to my house. He gets the $1.
A
And
crisp dollar bill for you.
yeah, that is a great treat. So
No,
thank
you, Romanoff. That was great.
Nice. And if you
Made our
guys
day.
would like to get your 5-star review read on the air, just leave one on iTunes, and we'll make sure to.
Or in Stitcher or anywhere.
Mhm.
We'll find it.
We will find your review, and we will talk about it on the air. So, okay. So Halloween, obviously, is very near and dear to our hearts. I mean, we launched this podcast on Halloween of 2014.
That's right.
So
And
can you believe it's been 2 years?
I can't actually. But it reminds me that some news that we're going to have a special announcement on our 2-year anniversary. Oh, it's so special. You don't even know about it.
It's so special that I'm shocked about
It's a
it.
secret announcement known only by me.
Okay,
So
fantastic. Well,
I just want to get everybody prepared for that because the 2-year anniversary is coming up and we need to have something special. I mean,
Yep.
don't you think?
I do agree that we need to have something
2 years
special.
is, yeah.
2 years
It's been
it's a big hairy
jolly
deal.
good 2 years too.
Well, and I like to think about all the fun people we met over the past
Yes.
2 years. We'll talk about
okay,
them. when
yeah,
the
we're on
time
a
comes.
tangent.
Today we're talking about
Yes.
Halloween. And not just, I mean, obviously we're sharing our favorite memories of Halloween a little bit and how in Madison, how it's super fun.
Yeah.
But we're also talking about like the history of it and also urban legends around Halloween. So, like Wendy, when you think about the history of Halloween, what do you think about?
To be honest, I think about like not Jack the Ripper. I think
I'm thinking about Jack the Ripper
for
anyway.
some reason I think of Ichabod Crane. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I think of anything related to pumpkins
Sure.
and jack-o'-lanterns and
Right. So Ichabod Crane,
yeah.
you guys, The Headless Horseman by Washington Irving.
Yeah.
And and that's funny because when Washington Irving was writing his stuff, that was like the middle of the 19th century. And that's kind of when Halloween was taking off more in the United States.
And I think of All Hallows Eve.
Yes. And we'll talk about that in a second, how that relates.
Yes. Okay, cool.
So Washington Irving and The Headless Horseman, great story. If you haven't read it, just go back and read it. And if you have kids, read it to your kids.
Scary.
There's a good Disney version of it
Oh, yeah.
from like the 1970s. It's pretty good that you can enjoy. But the thing is that Halloween, as we think of it, a lot of them was brought over by Irish immigrants. Okay. And a lot of them came over after the potato famine
Yeah.
in the 1840s
Mhm.
and they helped bring the tradition. So when I think about the history of Halloween, I think of this, well, I say Celts, but obviously somebody out there's be like, it's pronounced Celts, you jerk.
Trick or treat, laddie.
It's the Celts. No, I say Celts because I think of the Celtics. or
Oh,
whatever.
okay. Sure.
But one thing we've talked about in the fall, and we were saying how much we love the fall season,
Yeah.
is that as it starts to get dark and it gets darker every day, that's when the veil between here and the other world is broken down.
Darkness.
Yeah. So the idea that as the world is starting to die and get ready for winter, we're a little bit closer to the other side.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so really that festival of Samhain that the Celts used to celebrate, that was right around this time of year.
Samhain.
Was the name of the festival.
Oh, okay. And it just happened to be this time of year.
Yes. Samhain is the name of it's not a guy. The name of the festival. It's also
That's what I was thinking.
so Glenn
Sam who?
Glenn Danzig's band after the Misfits was called Samhain.
Oh, that's cool.
And also on the real Ghostbusters cartoon, the spirit of Halloween that would come over and try to turn on Halloween, he would try to turn the world into eternal darkness. Was a big pumpkin head kind of creature.
Awesome.
And that was Sam Hain was the ghost.
Ah, okay.
The real Ghostbusters. So, but that festival was just, it was their autumn festival. And that's where we get where they'd have a bonfire. They would,
Hay rides.
well, I don't think they had hay rides
Oh.
in ancient Ireland,
Oh.
but they did
Dang.
have animal skins. And
They
that,
could have had hay rides.
sure, they could have gotten
Horse and carriage.
did they
Maybe.
have
I don't know.
horses though?
Sure they did.
Okay. They did have horses. I always mix up whether we had horses before, because in like the New World here in the
Yeah.
United States, not the United States, but in the First Nations, they didn't have horses, but they were brought over by the Europeans. Sometimes I get that mixed up, and I'm like, did they have horses in Europe?
Well, I could be wrong, but
No, you are correct. They did have horses in Europe. I just got that
Or
mixed
maybe
up.
the
like an
sheep.
idiot.
Maybe they had sheep pulling
They
their
did-
hay rides.
That's a sheepy hayride. That sounds like fun. So, but they would do that. They had bonfires, and they would dress up, and that's so that bad spirits wouldn't know who.
Ah,
But
okay. I
maybe
couldn't
like-
tell the difference.
Yeah, they couldn't recognize them because they had animal skins on and stuff.
Hmm.
So that whole masking tradition
Yeah.
comes from the Celts and the Samhain tradition.
Okay.
And so when the pagan world of the Celts was Christianized, okay, so Romans conquer that, and then the Romans eventually become Christian. And so they want to do something with the holiday.
hmm
So they decide to make it, they're already celebrating like spirits and dead people and stuff like that.
Sure. Why not go for it?
They decide to make it like the Festival of the Martyrs.
Oh,
Okay. So in Christianity, it's a big deal to get killed for believing in your faith, right? Jesus was a
Right.
big martyr.
Yeah.
My mother's a huge martyr.
Mike.
No, but so a lot of those people who were sainted early on were martyrs, which means that they professed their Christianity and they were burned at the stake.
Mm.
And that's funny. You know, we were talking about Philip K. Dick about 3 weeks ago, I think, in the
Right.
Philip K. Dick episode. Well, when he had his strange religious experience,
Right. Yep.
he was thinking that he was a Christian martyr in the Roman times
Ah, that's right.
and he was going to be
Yeah.
persecuted. So the idea of these, so they have these All Martyrs Day. The Martyrs Day eventually becomes All Saints Day, where you celebrate the Catholic saints.
Okay.
And so now when you think about the Catholic saints, and you didn't grow up Catholic, Wendy, so
No.
but they still, I mean, the names of the other churches still had saints on them
Yeah.
usually.
Sure.
But with the Catholic saints in particular, you don't pray to the saints to do stuff for you. Okay? So Saint Michael or Saint whatever, Saint Cyprian is who I picked my confirmation name was Cyprian.
Okay.
He was a martyr that was burned at the stake. Or was he eaten by lions? I can't remember, but he was
Mm.
something horrible happened to him in ancient
Yeah,
Rome.
I'll say.
Oh, no, he was lit on fire.
Oh.
Yeah. So when you pray to the saints, you don't pray for like favors. So I wouldn't pray to Saint Cyprian for like a new car,
Okay.
but I would pray to Saint Cyprian to pray for me. So the
Hmm.
idea is that saints have it in good with God.
So if they like you, then they can.
They pray for you. And they think that God has the ear of the saint,
It's like an advocate.
or the saint has the ear of God. Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's like knowing somebody.
Sure. Have my people talk to your people.
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Right. And so that's the kind of thing so All Saints Day. And so sainted people, when you say, or holy is also known as hallowed. So hallowed ground,
Sure.
holy ground. So
Yeah.
hallowed are hallowed people are the saints.
Okay.
Right. And so All Hallows Eve is the day before All Saints Day. So
Ah.
Halloween uses the term hallowed.
Ah,
And
okay.
that's where it kind of comes from. So that's where our word comes from, is because it was before All Saints Day.
I see.
And they think the reason they picked All Saints Day as November 1st
Hmm.
is because they wanted to capitalize on that
Sure.
Day of the Dead.
Makes it easy to remember when it is.
Right. And so you always have to go to church on the day after Halloween.
Mm.
It's one of those holy days of obligation.
Oh,
So
okay.
you have 8 holy days of obligation until Sundays when you're supposed to go when you're Catholic.
I see.
And then the day after is All Souls Day. And that's the Day of the Dead that like they celebrate in Mexico and stuff. So that's when you pray for everybody,
And Devil's Night.
is how they party in Detroit.
Right, but that's the night before Halloween, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's where most of the tricks come from.
Yes. Okay.
And if you're interested in learning about the history of Devil's Night, of Walpurgisnacht, then that's something you can pick up in our episode from last year where we go over
that's
Devil's
right.
Night.
Yeah, our friend Lisa,
Yeah.
whose birthday is on Devil's Night.
Yeah. And she grew up
Coming
in
up.
Detroit. And so she knows all about and she
Yeah.
was a paramedic in the Detroit area.
Yes.
So she
yes.
has all the stories from when Devil's Night was at its worst.
Right.
Anyway, so that's kind of where it came from. Now, the
Mhm.
traditions that we associated with it, like the masks and everything, that didn't come until a little bit later. And in fact, more people actually at the turn of the century wore their masks on Thanksgiving than did on Halloween.
Whoa,
Yeah.
what?
So that was the trick or treat tradition and everything started happening in
okay.
New York City in the late 19th century.
Huh.
And
Why would they wear masks to Thanksgiving though?
well, the idea was that they they call them like mummers parades.
Oh,
So
okay.
people would dress up and ask for presents. They'd ask for treats. They would go,
for part of the bounty.
yeah. And well, it was just something they started doing. You
Hmm.
know, they already have that. We talked about that in our Christmas episodes tradition, that the people dress up as like like the creepy horse, like they have the horse skull with the
Right.
jingle bells and the eyes, and they go around. They sing songs. Wassailing
Yeah.
is what they call it. They go
Hmm.
around and sing songs, and they get like beers and things.
Okay, so that I see. That makes sense then.
Or when we talked about Krampus,
Right.
when people dress up like Krampus, run around in Germany and stuff, they go house to house and ask for
And
treats.
You give them treats to get them to go away.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So trick or treat. So people would dress up, and they were just doing it on Thanksgiving at the time. But then as people started picking up on the masking of Halloween, the wearing masks kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
then trick or treat, and as also when it started to get, well, regulated. You know, we were talking about like my village had an official trick or treat time.
Yeah. Right.
You know, so this is a time they say like,
You expect kids to show up at your house, so you should probably have candy.
right. And if it's a teenager, you don't have to give him candy unless he's bringing along his little brother or sister. Then
Right,
it's okay.
right.
But if it's just some lazy teenager like just wearing a mask that they picked up at Spencer Gifts, you don't have to give them candy.
Yeah.
That's a tip for this year's Halloween, everybody.
Nice. But if you don't, you might be a target for a trick.
Right, you might get some wax crayons
Right.
in your driveway.
So it might be worth just sacrificing a Snickers bar or two.
Right. And if you're living in the fun size land, just think full size gets you better,
Right?
gets less chances of getting some kind of trick later on. You know, okay, so when you brought home that trick or treat candy, and trick or treat to a kid, like,
best ever.
I mean, obviously sometimes you'd stop at the dentist's house and the dentist would give you a little
Right, like a toothbrush.
right? And then you'd stop by the Mary Kay lady's house and she'd be like, here's something for you and here's something for your mother.
Right. And then somebody would always give you an apple or an orange. It's like, what am I going to do with this?
Right. What, did you just get off the boat? We want high
But it's
fructose corn
You
syrup.
dump out your candy bucket at the end of the day or whatever, and it's like,
Some rotten apple pops
right.
out.
You're just like, what is that doing in there?
And the people that gave candy corn. Have we talked about candy corn before?
No.
Wendy,
I
you
love
like
candy
candy corn.
corn.
You're the only person I
Yes.
know that loves candy corn.
What?
That's why I feel like maybe not on the podcast, but we have discussed candy corn
Yeah, we
before.
have.
And you're like, oh man, candy corn's the best. Whenever I get candy corn, it's going to you.
Okay, cool. But I have to say though, I like it. There's a window and it's right around Halloween and I love it for that couple weeks or whatever.
Mhm.
And then it's like, I don't want to see it again. It's kind of like Cadbury eggs.
Cadbury eggs
you
are
know,
totally like that.
Yeah.
If usually I love Cadbury chocolate, but just the eggs, like if it's not around Easter time, then
Right.
like a weird
It's too
candy
much.
simulacrum.
Too much.
Mm-hmm. Now, were your parents ever like you can only eat so much right now and so much tomorrow?
I don't remember that. I
Like
think
now I feel like parents dole out the candy, or I hear people talking about they're like, yeah, no, they can eat
Yeah.
5 pieces of candy a day.
I mean, maybe when I was younger, but I think I was really good at self-regulating on that.
Okay.
I love to budget my candy and make it last for months and months
Wow.
afterwards.
2 days for me.
Oh,
I would go
You're a
through-
binger.
And there was my parents
So
were pretty good about
bad.
that. Like they were just like, whatever.
Go for it.
And I just, but my mother would always say, you get worms from the sugar.
Oh,
And that would be the thing. Be
nasty.
careful. You're going to get worms.
That didn't stop you though, did it?
Worms are great.
You love worms.
I love worms as long as they're gummy worms.
Ew.
So
Actually, those are good.
yeah, fantastic.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's the real Smarties, and then there's like fake Smarties that did.
Yeah, the texture was like you had to bite harder to get them to
Yeah,
break.
you're like, what are these even? Like, they're
I
not
know.
even good.
Somebody was being chintzy.
made
on
them at the
me.
candy corn factory, or circus peanuts.
Oh, I like those.
You know, the only place they make circus peanuts is in Wisconsin.
I think I remember hearing that.
Yeah, there's a place, and they usually hire people
Like
from like a local prison.
Portage or something, right?
Mhm.
It seems like the only place I ever see them for sale is at Fleet Farm or or Menards or one of
Right.
those like
So-
weird places.
So anybody out there who
Candy.
eats circus peanuts, we apologize, number one, for being somewhat responsible, and know that it's made by probably a convict.
And just make sure you eat them fresh, because once they go stale,
Oh, I mean, it's like stale Peeps.
right,
Nah.
there's a no go.
Wow.
Right.
All right. All right. So now, did your parents check the candy before you ate it?
Again, I don't really remember.
All right.
I just, I kind of remember dumping out the bag and then sort of sorting things out because I loved it. The Twix is my favorite.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And then my sister and I would do a little trading because she had her favorites, I had mine, and I'm sure my parents looked at it, but
See, I don't, my sister was 7 years older than me. I only went trick or treating with her a few times. So, because by
Yeah.
the time like she was like 15, she didn't go to, at the time I remember
sure,
things.
right? Yeah,
I
you
do
guys
remember
were
one Halloween going out with her, and I was a farmer. She was a ghost, and I was a farmer. I even had like a corncob pipe
Oh man,
kind of thing.
that's funny.
I remember being a farmer in my overalls.
Oh, I just remembered another bad treat:
What's that?
the little boxes of raisins.
Oh yeah.
Somebody would always give you those too. It's like, what am I going to eat? Let's see. I have a choice between M&Ms or raisins.
Right. Put those 2 scoops, shove them down your throat.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted you though.
No.
So your family or
So, my mother
checked things
would go through the candy because,
to pick out all the great things.
well, no, she would.
She wanted
she would
first-
go
no,
through
I'm
the
kidding,
candy
kidding.
to check it to make sure that
For
nobody
safety.
tampered with it.
Okay.
Because in the early 80s, like that was something that was the rumor that was going
Oh,
around, that
man.
people actually put
What a rotten
needles,
rumor.
pills, kind of things in their Halloween candy. But the thing is, it's true. like it happened.
No.
Like people actually,
Humans, why?
it's
Why are
not
you
usually
so
it's not
bad?
usually random people doing it. like the one case that they had, and this also freaked my family out because it happened in the early 80s, was somebody had actually tampered with Tylenol in the Chicago area.
I remember that.
And,
Yeah.
like 7 people died.
Oof.
And in fact, that changed. So Tylenol used to be just like the pills and stuff you would get. And then it became gel caps, because gel caps you could tell if they were
Right.
tampered with.
Yeah.
So that incident actually changed the entire
the manufacturing
acetaminophen
industry.
community. I love acetaminophen community, except they don't drink much. Like they're just always boring because their livers are so sensitive.
Oh man.
I take that seriously too. Like if I have like NyQuil, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't drink.
You do. I can vouch for that.
That's why I never take NyQuil.
Right. And you never take Advil either.
I'm like, acetaminophen, forget about it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's ibuprofen. That's different.
But the thing is that they're really, people actually did tamper. But if you're worried about people tampering with your candy, the chances are it's going to be your family member doing it and not somebody random.
No.
Yeah, that's the,
What?
So the idea of the poison Halloween candy and people tampering it, putting needles with it, it is an urban legend that it goes around, but it has actually happened. And it happens like several times.
Gotta be kidding me.
Over the course of
No.
a year. Yeah.
Wait, people poisoning their kids?
Yeah, that was in Minneapolis what happened.
Oh,
Also, like brothers and sisters doing it to each other.
I'm disgusted.
Yeah, well, people have gone to prison and stuff like that for screwing with, you know how people are cruel.
Yeah, it's like putting poison in somebody's tea.
Right. So the kind of person who does it is a sicko, with somebody who's
Clearly.
mentally
Right.
imbalanced. So the thing is, if you are worried about your candy, well, do you trust your sister?
Oh man.
kind of thing. So that's the kind. So pins and needles really has actually happened in candy, but it's
sick.
not like most of the time.
You don't have to worry about the neighbors and stuff.
Right. You don't have. That's not something that's
Okay, good.
a big deal. Speaking of family members, my mother also used to say that if you stayed up till midnight on Halloween, you'd see a witch fly across the
Oh,
room.
cool. Did you?
I never got to stay up till midnight. So sometimes I would try
But
to.
didn't you try?
Of course I tried. But the thing is, like anytime that I actually stayed awake until midnight,
that's
like I couldn't
that.
see the moon out my window.
Yeah.
Or
It was cloudy.
yeah, so I would just be like,
sure.
well, yeah. I'd be like, did you see the witch? She's like, yeah, I saw the witch.
Of course.
She's like, of course I saw the witch fly
I
across.
like that. She started her own little.
And I think her
legend.
mother did that to her.
That's cute.
So she did that to me. But the thing is, those rumors of those tricks gone awry on Halloween.
Yeah.
And it is because, there is a long tradition. When we were talking about the sailing and Krampus, you get a group of young guys going around all wasted.
Oh man, raucous.
Right. Starting fights. There is.
Yeah.
You do have
It's
to worry.
trouble.
And like pranks, like made a joke like, oh, I toilet papered a house. And it never was, toilet papering was never that bad of a kind
No.
of thing.
Yeah, it's clean upable.
Right. You're just like, oh, it's toilet paper. Some guy's being a jerk or whatever.
Right.
But, other Halloween
It's
pranks, if they
inconvenient.
start a place on fire or something, Devil's Night.
Real
pranks.
destruction. Yeah.
Right. Devil's Night pranks. It's just a little bit different.
Mm.
So there's other urban legends that go around. And, one of my, I hate to say it's one of my favorites, but it is one of my favorites,
Oh, no.
is that somebody will see somebody hanging from a tree or something like that, which
Mm.
obviously in this country has its own complications to it.
Yeah.
But somebody will see a Halloween decoration. And you know
Right.
how some people go all out.
Oh, yeah.
There's the Halloween decorations. Like, oh, there's a little witch. Or, oh, somebody put a little skeleton in
Or
the
a
window.
ghost.
Yeah, like Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Right.
And then other people have a Halloween decorations that looks like
Realistic.
like a horror movie.
Right. Yeah.
It's like a zombie
Freddy
with,
Krueger and yeah.
a zombie with half a brain coming out of the thing, and it freaks you out.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, the rumor is that somebody killed themselves, and they thought it was a decoration, but it was real.
That's horrific.
That hasn't happened with like the tree kind of thing.
Okay.
But that has happened where somebody was on their porch
Oh no.
and they had died on their porch, like collapsed and died on their porch. And like the postman the next day came by, saw the dead body, and thought it was a Halloween decoration. This just happened in 2005.
And if it was still there the next day, chances are other people probably passed it too and thought that because nobody
Right.
called 911 or anything.
So,
Oh, that's horrible. Ew.
yeah.
And sad.
Mustafa Mahmoud Zaid had apparently been dead for 3 days.
Oh.
And this happened. This was an actual suicide in Marina Del Rey, California.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. In 2009, a 75-year-old suicide victim sat undisturbed on the balcony of his home for several days because neighbors thought it was part of the Halloween display.
Oh, that is so sad.
He was slumped over the chair on the third floor balcony of his apartment on Bora Bora Way, said cameraman Austin Ragebrook, who was on the scene when authorities were alerted to the body. So the neighbors said they'd noticed it 3 days earlier, but they thought it was a Halloween dummy.
They thought it was a fake dead body.
Right. And I guess that's the danger. Like, do not make your Halloween decorations
Too realistic.
so realistic that your neighbors don't know when you're actually dead.
Oh. But that actually is like horrific. I mean,
Right. And just in the street.
yeah.
Oh, what did I talk about this last year? One of my favorite Halloween decorations that I've seen that somebody did in Madison was that they had set up a graveyard in their front yard. Okay, so they set up a graveyard in their front yard.
That's always fun. I like to see those when I'm jogging around.
Right, and I was on a jog when I saw it. But all the people on the grave, all the names were characters from Game of Thrones.
Oh, that's cool. That's a
So
cute idea.
the thing is, if you were not current on Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
you
Spoiler.
could be spoiled just by somebody's Halloween
man.
decorations. But I loved it because they're like, well, who are we going to fill? You know, like what's the show that kills the most people?
Right.
Game of Thrones.
Right. Oh, that's funny.
So that was one of my favorite.
I like how it brings out the creativity in people.
It
with
does.
These types of things. You know, we're grown ups and now we have yards, houses, and things we can decorate. And it's neat to see people go a little crazy with the fake dead bodies, not the real ones.
Right.
But
You know, but
Fun.
what I think is something interesting is that, like, you know, Halloween, you liked it when you were a little kid. Then in high school, you're like, oh, it's okay, whatever. But then I find as an adult, like Halloween is like the last holiday that we have for adults.
it is. It's the last fun holiday that you can really look forward to. Like,
Right. Because I mean, Christmas now really is about children because you're all trying,
Oh,
people are trying
yeah.
to sell toys
Right.
and stuff. But, you know, Halloween, there's just as many things like geared towards it. Like, some of it's gruesome, or there's the sexy costumes and things like that.
Right.
Like, you know, and that was one thing, like in college, like you realize like people didn't just wear plastic anymore. You know, sometimes you're like, for their sexy costumes, they weren't wearing hardly anything.
oh my
And I was
gosh.
like,
and
hey.
they have like the sexy everything.
Right.
I'm a slutty crayon.
I'm a sexy butcher.
Right. Like, and just objects, just random objects. Like,
Right.
I'm a sexy chair.
Yeah. You're like, hey.
How does that even?
Right. This time the chair sits on you.
Oh,
So-
gosh.
But the thing is, so the adult part of it really is one thing that makes it extra fun, I
Yeah,
think.
it's true.
Is that there's a part that appeals to kids because kids love playing dress up. Kids love to be scared.
Mhm.
And that's not something that changes over time.
Yeah.
And so as an adult, I've learned to appreciate the holiday in a different way.
Yeah. And also when you're a kid, I remember one of our favorite things to do would be go to those haunted houses, you know, the manufactured haunted houses,
Right.
usually for charity or something like that. But they'd always be really scary. And those you wouldn't be allowed to go into until you were a certain age too. So it gave it like kind of an allure of,
Yeah.
ooh, this must be really scary.
Man, and talking about haunted houses, now here's a couple of different things I want to mention. Number one, the first time I was ever traumatized by a haunted house
Mm.
was I was like 5 years old. And then I went with, and I was so scared, like, because they had the
no.
monsters walking in the line and stuff.
Oh.
And I forgot where
Yeah.
we were. But like the scariest guy was this guy in like a Wolfman costume. And I'm there, and my sisters, I'm maybe a little older than 5. I'm bawling though about how scared I am. And I look over and like my sister's got her arms around the Wolfman and looks like she's about to make out with the Wolfman, like the scariest guy there. And I'm like, oh God,
Oh,
Allison's
what's
making out with the
happening?
Wolfman. Oh God. And I'm just terrified by it.
That's funny.
And that was like the first time I've ever been
So
traumatized
she-
by a haunted house.
Did she knew the person in the costume or what?
I think so.
Oh, funny.
That's all I have is that visual. Is like her and the Wolfman.
That is
I'm like-
traumatizing.
I'm like, oh God, like he's coming to kill us.
Well, we used to love to make our own little haunted houses in the basement.
Oh.
So for our friends and stuff like that, you know, keep the lights out, and then we'd try to do our little cheesy homemade versions of, you know.
But did you ever have something like you give them, like you try to tell them
Oh, in the dark, the game where you,
touch things?
yeah, we used to do that at Halloween parties too.
Right, you always do it. So like you peel a grape and then you tell them it's an eyeball.
Eyeball, right.
That's the first thing I remember.
And isn't there like something with raw meat and it's a brain or something like that?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't,
Nasty.
not at
So
my
gross.
house. My mother would be like, no raw meat at my house. She'd have been
That
like,
does seem a little unsanitary,
yeah,
doesn't
she'd have been like,
it? Maybe it wasn't raw meat.
everybody wash your hands.
Maybe it was something else. I don't know.
But that makes me laugh just thinking about it. And right, you touch like Jello, and it'd be like,
Mm.
these are intestines. But then the thing is, so where I grew up in the town of Mukwonago, the haunted house would actually be done in an abandoned hotel.
Ooh,
Okay. So it was a
creepy.
place called Rainbow Springs Resort. And this place was
Oh.
up until maybe a few years ago. It was just torn down.
Yeah.
So just to give you guys a little history behind this particular hotel, they started building it in the 1960s, and the hotel gets done almost all the way. The golf course gets done, and the owner realizes that he can't finish building the hotel, can't get enough money, kills himself inside the hotel.
Oh my goodness.
And that's not an urban legend. He killed himself inside the hotel.
Wow, that's tragedy.
Okay. So the hotel's built, but it never opens. And they would have, like the local JCs or whatever, would have the haunted house inside the
I
hotel.
can't believe they. Oh man.
So they would have it inside the hotel. And the thing is, people always said the hotel was haunted. Like psychics.
I'm sure.
They had a
yeah.
psychic go through it and say the whole thing about the
It's a prime kind of place to be haunted.
that guy
A
really
big-
did kill himself.
and
in
it's
there.
like a big, huge, spooky, like a building that's never was used, right? It was built
No.
but never used. So I mean, that's
And it's really interesting. So, like, I knew some people that work at the golf course, and they would help us sneak in sometimes. And so you would go there, and you would be like, because you'd always heard it was haunted,
yeah.
you'd go there, and this is before we had cameras and everything, but see if we could see anything weird and stuff. And when you walked into the hotel, like the different rooms, they were furnished. They even had the cable on the
Wow.
walls, like the
So they did invest a ton of money.
yeah. And then it just never
Unbelievable.
never did anything. And like if you went in the ballroom in the winter, snow would come in through broken glass and everything. It was just a really spooky place.
Yeah, I'll
And-
say
And the people that had worked at the haunted hotel, because it was all like the local drama kids. That
the
was
haunted house they did there.
Yeah, the haunted house they
Okay.
did there.
Yeah.
They would always, they have areas that they wouldn't go. You know, they'd be like, no, we don't like to go here
bet.
because that's where you feel watched or like feel like somebody's
Mhm.
touching you or, you know, it, and everybody, the acting types are going to be sensitive about this kind of stuff
Are you
anyway.
saying that'd be melodramatic?
I'm
Mike?
saying they'd be melodramatic. Yes, I am.
Okay.
And there are always great stories about,
Cool.
you know, that hotel. And one time this was a couple of weeks after Halloween. We broke into the haunted hotel and there was nobody there that night. And we just started wandering around the different rooms and everything, trying to catch something, trying to catch some kind of paranormal activity.
Okay.
Okay. Well, number one, like the police came by a couple times, so we had to duck because you see the lights go past and everything. Oh, cops! Because the cops are always checking it out because
Sure.
there's
trouble going on in there,
and
kids.
I am the trouble going on in there.
riff raff.
But I didn't destroy anything. I did take one of the they had pamphlets. Like they had hundreds of ads,
Oh,
hundreds
that's
of ads from
crazy.
the 1960s pamphlets
Cool.
that were, you know, like talking about how awesome this place was going to be. Well, so awesome it never happened.
Mm.
And I don't know if like they had shot like a Motley Crue video there or something the day before, but we go in one of the rooms and had the
Uh-oh.
flashlights out, and somebody had drawn a pentagram
Oh no.
and killed a chicken.
Oh,
Like
gross.
there were little, and I don't know if they killed the chicken like there or if it was just a dead chicken, but there was
Ugh.
blood on the like. That's what I say. Like who filmed?
So
the
it wasn't
video
like a
there?
Tyson chicken.
No, it was like. They could have taken the turkey from the, you know, like it was before Thanksgiving, so they could have gotten the turkey.
Yeah.
But it was just like
Oh,
bits of meat
Ew.
and some blood on this.
That must have been a delight to discover.
Right, but that's what I was saying. Like, who had come here? Like,
Weird.
it's like every cheesy
Right.
like
horror movie.
Ozzy Osbourne video or something like that. It's like, yeah, we sacrificed the chicken in the haunted hotel, man, and now we have the power of Satan. So it just makes me think of Halloween, and also when you have a haunted, like quote unquote haunted house, in an
Mhm.
actual
Yeah.
haunted house.
That definitely
Like-
ups the
Right.
fear factor.
Where people have experiences and they see shadow people and there's stuff moving around.
That's cool.
Anyway, Rainbow Springs is gone now, but it was a pretty sweet place.
Yeah. Neat opportunity.
Yeah. So, what's your favorite Halloween related movie? We were kind of talking about the Halloween related stories, and you said you always thought about Ichabod Crane and
Yeah.
the Headless Horseman.
Boy, that's a tough one. Gosh. I didn't watch a lot of scary movies.
Okay.
I mean, I always think of, I guess, The Nightmare Before Christmas comes to mind.
Sure, and
but-
that's a great Halloween movie,
Yeah.
and a great Christmas movie.
Yes, it is.
It's everything movie.
But beyond that, I don't know. What's yours?
Well, number one, the Garfield Halloween special.
Oh, of course.
The Garfield Halloween special is solid. Like,
Right.
I'd recommend that to anybody. Those pirates are terrifying, anyway, I'd recommend that as one that's like it's pretty funny for adults and it's super scary for kids. And I don't know how Garfield got scary, but
Yeah,
it totally
that
is.
seems unusual. But that does, of course, bring to mind The Great Pumpkin.
Oh yeah, that was on
'Cause-
TV last
Yeah.
night.
And it's like one of those that when you're a little kid, you watch it every year, and you know it just kind of makes the season feel like Halloween.
Right.
So
So the
another
Charlie Brown
classic, yes, Charlie Brown
and his Great Pumpkin.
yes.
You know, I also like to think about the movie Halloween.
Mm.
And right, and there's an urban legend that I think is
Ooh.
totally inspired by that.
Okay.
And I've seen this on Facebook a couple of times this year already. But people will share an image of like a Halloween party in 1962. And they got this really scary person with a black mask. And it says, on Halloween in 1962, there was a costume party. The man in the black mask locked all the doors from outside and tried to kill all of them.
Oh.
The man ended up killing only 7 people using a kitchen knife. He was never caught, but the mask was found in 1969, and the FBI has it in custody. And some idiot's always sharing that. I'm sure there'd be more to the story than
Right.
just shared in a picture. And it's a spooky, it's a scary Halloween
Okay.
party. And when you look at some of those older Halloween costumes,
Yeah.
and I'm not talking about like Inspector Gadget when I was a kid. I'm talking about, do you ever see Batman Begins?
Probably.
Okay. In the Batman Begins, the Christian Bale one,
Uh-huh.
in that particular movie, he's wearing there's a villain called the Sandman. And the Sandman wears like a
Oh,
bag over his, and it
yes.
looks like a
So
bag of
scary.
grain or something like that.
It's like a scarecrow.
Yeah, exactly, like a scarecrow.
Yeah.
And it's a
It's so
terrifying
scary.
costume. And in that movie particularly,
We saw someone with that costume last year.
oh, that's right. Oh yeah, the scarecrow.
She was the scariest person at the party.
She was, and it's a terrifying costume.
Super terrifying.
There's a ton of like old pictures from the early 20th century when these people were doing these masks and stuff on
Yeah.
Thanksgiving instead of Halloween, and a lot of people are dressed up like the scarecrows. So it's actually much more terrifying, like in these old
Yeah.
pictures.
I bet.
And so I think that's one of the reasons that this particular urban legend gets around,
Okay.
and it also feeds into that movie Halloween, John Carpenter's
Mm.
movie. And while we think of slasher films as kind of jokey now, we've had years of Freddy Krueger, and we've had years of Jason Voorhees not being able to be killed off, and and it's just ridiculous. But in 1978, when they made this movie Halloween, and the idea was that this little kid actually was dressed in a clown costume in the original.
Oh.
And this little kid on Halloween freaked out and killed his sister. And then he goes in a mental asylum, and he breaks out on Halloween like 10 years later,
Okay.
and then he's hunting down his other sister. Okay?
Wow.
But the cool thing about that movie is that, first of all, nobody had ever made a slasher movie before. So nobody ever made the kind of visceral blood and guts kind of thing. Like, it was new, it was shocking. It wasn't just by the end of
story.
by the end of those Freddy Krueger movies,
Oh, gosh.
ended up just being a special effects thing and
Right.
something ridiculous and a gross out fest. But this is the kind of the first movie that used that and made Jamie Lee Curtis a star.
Uh-huh.
And what was interesting about it was also the way it was teenagers. So now teenagers are the main characters in the horror movie.
Yeah.
As opposed to if you go to like horror movies from the 50s and 60s, it's always adults or there's a doctor present, like,
Yeah.
my analysis of the thing. It's always, and so now teenagers, and it's using their sexuality. And Halloween is the movie, is the characters that are doing it are the characters that get killed.
Oh man.
So you kind of say it's like, oh no, as soon as the romance starts happening, you're like, that
something bad's gonna happen.
they're a target.
Yeah.
And eventually it gets recycled to the point where by the time we get to the movie Scream, oh, speaking of a great Halloween prank,
yeah.
when
Oh, no.
Scream 2 came out, we saw it in the local college theater, and we knew the guy who was managing the theater, right? So Scream 2 comes out, and the beginning of Scream 2, there's people being killed inside a movie theater by people in the
Oh man.
Scream mask, right?
I know where this is going.
All of a sudden, we're watching the movie inside a movie in the movie theater, and then the manager of the theater, because it's by Hamilton, comes running out with a knife and the Scream
Oh
mask.
man. So meta.
Right? Oh god! And everybody just pooped their pants. Like, you could just hear this collective.
Oh no.
Everybody soiled their armor at the same time. I'm just thinking about that now. Like now with concealed carry, you do not.
No way.
No, you would do that. Somebody would pop you.
No, definitely not.
And it just makes me think about that. But
That's hilarious.
so the movie Halloween kind of set the blueprint for all the slasher movies that happened afterwards.
Okay.
And it's about the crimes that take place on Halloween.
Hmm.
And the Michael Myers mask.
Right.
So it actually was a mask of William Shatner. It was a Captain Kirk mask that they took. They stretched.
What?
They
Really?
painted it white, and they stretched out the hair. And so it's William Shatner's face you're
Oh
actually
my
looking
gosh, I
at when
didn't
you
know
look
that.
at Halloween. And Halloween eventually became a parody of itself, and the later movies are crap. But the first film kind of sets the template for all the movies that came afterwards. So that's why it's my favorite
Okay.
Halloween-related kind of piece of media. Anyway, if you guys have some of your favorite Halloween legends or urban legends that you'd love to tell us about, then you can do that on Twitter
That's
at
right.
Other Side Talk.
Yes.
And if you want to see pictures of Wendy and I looking beautiful in our Halloween costumes, then you can find that. Where's the show notes going to be, Wendy?
The show notes will be at othersidepodcast.com/115. During the Halloween season, cable TV networks love to run specials about Satanism because Satanists embrace Halloween as a time when the rest of the world explores its own darkness. One of the most talked about satanic magic spells is the Destruction Ritual, a meditation based on cursing an enemy. It's their most dangerous rite, and so we thought it would make a perfect subject for a song. So here's Sunspot with Destruction Ritual.
Hail Satan! Hail Satan!
It's such a silly cliche,
Vengeance is mine! Vengeance is mine!
and you can have it anyway. Play the game where you were never born. I love to watch your demise through these very eyes on fire, sun and storm.
Hail Satan! Hail Satan!
It just sounds stupid when you say,
Vengeance is mine! Vengeance is mine!
'cause all this hate will rot your brain. Play the game where you were never born. I love to watch your demise through these very eyes on fire, sun and storm.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at othersidepodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.
1, 2, 3. Trick or treat.
Oh, and we can't forget our Patreon community here.
No way. Never forget them.
Right. So if you guys like the kind of the cool stuff we put out every single week, you guys can be part of our Patreon community. Where's that, Wen?
Othersidepodcast.com/donate.
Fantastic. And at our highest level, you get mentioned in the podcast every week. And so our buddy Ned, thank you for being such an awesome patron.
Thank you, Ned.